mate, that was another great interview, wasn't it, to kick off the year? After 033, you're getting Gordon Chapman-Fox, aka Warrington-Runcorn Newtown Development Plan. I have to really think and say that. It was a great title, but what a lovely guy. And the fact his music's getting so well recognised. Electronic Sound Magazine's Album of the Year, Rough Trade, in our top 5 of our top 30. Such a lovely bloke.
It's funny how it works, though, isn't it? Sometimes, it endorses the fact of what we say, that there's so much music out there. I mean, Gordon was in bands for years, and then he became Warrington Newtown. Every album critically acclaimed. Electronic Sound Magazine, Rough Trade, Albums of the Year. It's just taken off. It's just kind of like it's funny that there is loads of that music out there, and it's just the finding of it.
Yeah, it's true. And, I think what's interesting is he's selling out of the back catalogue, repressing them. I think he said, as you'll see later in our chat, they're selling really fast when he re-releases them, just ridiculously fast.
Should we dive in?
Yeah, let's everyone meet Gordon Chapman-Fox, a.k.a. Warrington-Runcorn Newtown Development Plan. Enjoy, guys.
Have you always been a solo artist, or was there ever a band?
Oh no, I had a very dodgy 10 years in a metal band, so
we are delighted to welcome an artist on the Electronic Cafe that blew us and many others away with a fantastic Nation's Most Central Location album last year. So we had to get the genius that is Gordon Chapman-Fox, aka Warrington-Runcorn Newtown Development Plan, onto the show. Gordon, welcome to the Electronic Cafe, my friend. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to meet you, mate. I mean, congrats on the praise this album's getting. It's received. I mean, it got Electronic Sound Magazine's Album of the Year. You think how many albums they review every year. Rough Trade recommend it as one of the best of 2023. Of course, we put it, I think, in our top 5 for our top 30 albums of 2023. You must be pleased that people are sitting up and taking notice of this.
Oh, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. It sort of, it continues to surprise and amaze me. Really, I've said this before, but I spent sort of like 25 years making music or however long, and sort of like none of it's sold more than like 30 copies ever, and all of a sudden I'm sort of like album of the year in national magazines. And it's sort of, since the first album came along, well, almost exactly was it 3 years ago, it's just been non-stop. It's just been building and building and building, and it's just incredible. So,
have you always been a solo artist, or was there ever a band?
Oh no, I had a very dodgy 10 years in a metal band, so sort of. But yeah, for the past 20 years or so, I've been sort of like working as a solo, principally electronic musician.
So what was that moment, mate? Because you said you were like in a metal band, so it made you transfer to go, right, actually, you know what? I'm going to complete change and...
wife and kids.
Yeah, we can relate to that. when I listen, or when you might listen to your stuff, there's like such a texture and depth in the music. You know, what's the kind of normal? Is there a normal process for each track you make, or is it just on the moment? I mean, obviously tell us, but love to know how they evolve.
The creation of so much of my music it is, you know, it's all very heavily based on sort of like I work in Ableton, and because it's a sort of a live kind of tool, I kind of like I often create and jam tracks live, or I find a sound in a synthesizer and go, where does this lead me? Do you know where? And the sort of like what comes out is what that sound means to me, or if I jam it live. But then, because I'm recording it in Ableton, I will often just sort of like then spend ages editing it down. So, you know, sort of songs on the albums that are like 3.5 minutes long or something were probably like 7 minutes long originally. And
yeah,
it's just condensing that sort of jam down into a more condensed form of itself.
When you're writing or when you jam to get ideas, I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, me and Andy was in bands. I was synthesizers. So sometimes it's a sound that influences you to then go down a route rather than have a predefined idea. But when you jam your stuff, are you working on modular synths, or have you got synths, or do you use the software synths, or what's your process?
So often, because I have such a heavy editing process as part of it, I'll often start off with software synths. So it'll often start off with, you know, Yuhi Diva is like my absolute favorite. It's an absolute dream. So I will find something in there, but then when I've got it actually edited down, then I will actually transfer that and sort of like start re-recording parts with hardware synths. It's most people probably listen to it and think that's probably a backwards way of doing it, but it's what works to me and my messed up brain. So you know, it's sort of like it's the system that works for me. So there's sort of I don't actually have any modular. So that is somewhere that my, you know, I can understand modular. I can use Ableton almost as a modular and use the sequences, sort of like things like that in it. But the actual sort of like getting, you know, 12 different modules in a case and sort of like plugging one thing into another thing, I don't understand that. So you know, full admiration for those that do. I don't get that. You know, I like to, you know, give me a hardware synth with a fixed signal path. You know, I understand that.
I understand that process because, you know, using the hardware synths is very tactile and you can, you know, manipulate the sound, where I guess that from what you're saying, I'm assuming that you get the framework of an idea on Ableton and then you use overdubs and edits to get what you want. I use Logic Pro, and sometimes it's just like scrolling through a spreadsheet. It's kind of, you know, it's not got that tactile slider, twisty, knobby.
So you know, as I say, I have I use Diva quite a lot. So I actually have a default live set that I load up, and it will have Diva pre-installed, and it will already have like sort of like 12 not sliders, knobs or whatever, maps, sort of controllers that I'll have on the push. So you know, I'm already halfway there to like getting that tweakability right away.
last year, I mean, your output was amazing. I mean, obviously, these two beauties behind me. What's the plans for this year? Is a similar kind of output, or more or less, or?
Yeah. So last year we had Nation's Most Central Location, which is an album, and the Building a New Town EP, which was quite a diversion. That was sort of like fully getting my Mike Oldfield freak on there, I think so. But sorry, you asked about this year. So this next year, dates are still a bit woolly yet because we were just waiting to hear sort of like dates from the sort of pressing company. So we're hoping for an album in April.
Wow.
Called Your Community Hub. And as each of my albums have sort of a single color theme, this one's going to be purple. So so that'll be 7 tracks, 40 minutes, again released on Castles in Space. There is a single preceding it, which is will be available as a 7-inch and a 12-inch single. So
Wow.
that's actually, so we're actually taking a single from the album for the first time, and we were incredibly fortunate to get a remix from Vince Clarke. So that's on.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sort of like makes me listen to my original and go, God.
Yeah, getting the Clark fairy dust is no bad thing, is it?
Not at all, not at all. So you know, I have to say this sort of, you know, I only sort of like emailed him about 3 times in the whole process of the thing, but my fingers were trembling every time I did. So
Yeah, I get that. I mean, as you probably saw, Mark, I interviewed him just before Christmas, and with the release of his Songs of Silence album, and I won't lie, there were butterflies for both of us because he's like,
yeah,
he's a hero.
They can't be.
Yeah, he's a hero for all of us, and that's amazing. That's amazing, mate.
I'll make a note of the date because I don't want to miss out on this one like I did last.
So we're hoping for sort of late March for the single, the album mid-April, kind of. But we just want to get some idea of firm dates from the pressing plant before we actually do that. So there's that, but then also later in the year there will be an EP which is called Overspill Estates, and it's called that because they are literally albums that tracks that were on the album,
right?
Until I had a late rush of creativity and made better songs, but I'd fallen in love with these too much to just dispose of them. So that'll be coming probably October.
So lots of new material to look forward to, mate. It's amazing.
Conceptual feel to your output. I mean, there's a lot of it's based on your geography, and you know, there's references to, you know, locality and Runcorn and stuff. Was that a conscious thing, or was the first release just doing something on what you know?
The first album came about because I was sort of I had a bit of a sideline at the time. I'm making sort of like music for a local company, the filmmaking company that does adverts for sort of like caravan parks and that sort of thing. And I was making this music on my own, and I thought, well, it sounds like it's a soundtrack to something, but what's it the soundtrack to? So,
yeah.
And lots of people were sort of coming out with a sort of at the time, there seemed to be lots of, oh, this is like the sort of the soundtrack to a forgotten John Carpenter film or something, these ersatz soundtracks or something. So I thought, well, mine's kind of soundtracky, but personally, I don't want to be like, you know, I'm not good enough to say my music's good enough to be a John Carpenter soundtrack. And I'm also far more prosaic than that. And I thought, well, it's obviously set in a time period. What's the time period? What would we be advertising at that time? And I just thought, well, it's probably a sort of a profile of some sort of boring local authority in sort of on Nationwide in 1979.
Yeah.
That is really where it came from. The sort of like the sound of the music kind of like dictated the name of the project, and that is then sort of like just sort of cast in stone ever since. So the first album, I kind of like, as I say, the sort of like the music created the project, as it were.
Oh,
But since then, I've actually sort of like gone into it and sort of like done research. I've got the actual books of the
wow.
development plans from Runcorn. I've got the stuff like I've read books on it. I've I've been to libraries to sort of read up on it, just to sort of like try and understand some of the sort of like what were the sort of like ideas that were
Yeah,
going,
yeah, yeah.
what was happening at the time to actually make these places a reality.
And mate, what artists have inspired you? Because I can hear bits of Vangelis in there and other bits, but it's also quite, even though there's big sounding synths, it's obviously very much you now. And now I know your stuff, and this is why we want a lot of our music. I very much know it's you, but who inspired you to this point?
Oh, the biggest childhood inspiration, no doubt, was Jean-Michel Jarre.
Yeah,
You
good
know,
show.
we when I was in Nipper, we had Equinox and Oxygen on cassette, and being I was what 5 in 1980, utterly Star Wars obsessed, and it sounded like music from the future. So I would play with my little Star Wars figures and play Jean-Michel Jarre. So that's the number one thing. There's sort of like, music inspiration comes from everywhere, really. There's sort of, on the electronic scene, sort of, as I say, one of the things that sort of like, when I ditched being in a metal band to being in a sort of like synth output was, Ad Ento X, they were incredible. And also being in the metal scene, you're always after the most extreme new music. And then sort of like, you can only go so far down the path, go, well, this is borderline unlistenable. And then someone comes along and says, have you heard Aphex Twin? And you go, oh, okay. And you listen to that and go, well, that's far more extreme than anything you can do with a guitar. The search for the extreme kind of like, I don't know if it's like an aging process, but after a while I went, extreme's fine. You can listen to Wartaker, but it's nice to have a tune you can whistle or yeah, as time has mellowed me into sort of wanting stuff with melody and sort of things like that. So, but other influences. I was listening to Nation's No Central Location myself again probably for the first time in nearly a year, because you know what it's like when you're recording an album, the actual lead times are so long. So I actually listened to it, well, maybe not a year, but certainly sort of like 6 to 8 months. I listened to it again, and I was like, realized that the sort of the bass on Rock Savage, where it comes in, it's so thick. And I thought, that's me being a heavy metal bassist again. I hadn't realized the fact that it was like, oh yeah, I get that now. I see where that's dun, 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 dun. It's like me being back having long hair and a beard again.
It's also interesting to revisit stuff because you do get very close to it when you're recording it, mixing it, and you get a little bit blind to it. So in one instance, looking back and listening to it again after a year or 6 months or whatever, you hear it with fresh ears, kind of.
Yeah, you said a good point though, as we all get a bit older and wiser. I think we get more. Me and Mark were talking about this the other day, like stuff that you maybe played 20 years ago, you didn't really think that was great. Now you hear it, you go, actually, I mean, as you get older, you're kind of a bit more patient with music, and you kind of, I might be wrong on that, but I just think as we get older, we get a bit more, even more for us. I think people like us three and everyone on this channel, a bit more open-eared to there's such a thing about, when you're younger, you're a bit more, oh, don't like that, don't like that. I just think we get a bit more patient with it. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah, you know, I think most people will do that, but you know, as I said before about the sort of Mike Oldfield influence or something, you know, I would be like an 8-year-old and I'd listen to both sides of Tubular Bells and just like on headphones and just listen to it, and I think that's probably pretty extreme way to be an 8-year-old, but
That's a couple of our people on the channel were commenting. They came and saw you live and were nothing but flattering about you. One, I think a couple of them met you after, said what a charming man you are, and clearly you are, but also how amazing you were live. Are there any dates planned for this year?
Oh yeah, yeah. If you visit my website, warringtonruncorn.com, there's a list of dates there. But kicking off in mid-March, let's see if I can remember them all. I am doing Liverpool, Todmorden. I'm going to back down to London, Brighton. I've forgotten all of my dates. I'm going to Scotland for the first time. I've had a lot of people messaging me saying, "When are you coming to Scotland?" And I've really struggled to get sort of like promoters to actually work something out. So I'm heading to Scotland for the first time. I'm also heading to Europe for the first time, hopefully.
Amazing. Oh, mate, that's amazing.
Whereabouts in Europe are you playing?
Well, we're talking about gigs in Ghent, Brussels, Dresden, and Berlin.
Nice. All good centres of excellence for music.
Yeah, well, yeah. I can't wait. So,
We'll get Mark Reeder to perhaps pop along in Berlin to see you.
We talked earlier about a repressing of one of your previous albums. Is that going to happen? Because I know they keep selling out. So we're going to see any of the other albums that you've done being repressed.
Probably, yeah, yeah. These sort of, I'm working with Castles in Space, which is, it's a small independent label, so they can't afford to actually have boxes of stuff sat around. So, which is why we sort of like tend to have like everything sells out and then we repress. So yeah, I think we're talking about doing a repress of the second album, People and Industry, at some point. That may happen this year, may happen next year.
Yeah.
We might give it the deluxe special edition thing as we did with the first album earlier this year. So it already had 2 digital bonus tracks, so we might actually press those onto a separate 7-inch for the first time, something like that. Actually listen to that album again for the first time. Again, as you're saying, revisiting your stuff, and it's like, oh, I'd always sort of like put it down as my weakest album in a way, and I was listening to it again, going, actually, this is really good. So maybe I was just in the right mood. So yeah, I don't know, but hopefully we're going to do that. But there's also sort of people have also been asking things on CD far more than we have done, and obviously we've had that EP there. There's single EP coming this year, and there's been a whole series of tracks over the years for various compilations and things. So we might actually put all those together on a CD at some point. I don't want to feel like sort of like we're ripping anyone off, but there's definitely demand for this. So,
oh yeah, it's a busy. You got to try and it's a business for you as well. So you got to pay the bills. So good luck with it. I just hope it keeps growing and growing, keeps selling out and selling out, because the stuff you're doing is great. And in fact, you mentioned about the sort of John Carpenter stuff and whatever. I'm surprised based on your output now and as your stars rising. Has anyone asked you to do a film track yet? Because I'm sure it's going to happen at some point.
No, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Yeah,
So it was. I've been in touch with a filmmaker in London who was wanting to do a sort of almost Richard Curtis style documentary, just using sort of stock footage of new towns with my music plastered over the top of it, which would be quite interesting. So there's that. But I would love you actually get the chance to actually compose something for
yeah, you can. I mean, your stuff's made for it. I think absolutely made for it.
Yeah, I was watching that thing called The Rig that was out last year with music by Blank Mass.
Yes.
It was like a 1970s Tom Baker Doctor Who story, but for more adult audiences and with no Doctor Who figure. It
Yeah,
was about a haunted oil rig or something, and it was
that's
like
right.
it was absolute silly nonsense. But the soundtrack was Blank Mass, and that was fantastic. And I thought I could do that.
Question we ask everyone, and apologies if it puts you on the spot, but Desert Island Disc, what would it be?
Would it be heavy metal or would it be electronic?
Well, that's the thing, mate. You're right, Marky. I was just thinking I wouldn't know where to guess on this one, and we normally get it wrong. Anyway. Mark and I too, we both laugh because we have an idea, and we're always a million miles away from it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if I answer, yeah, I'll immediately regret my answer and I'll change my mind in about 3 seconds anyway. But as of this moment, I would probably say Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah,
You know, it's a
great album.
brilliant album. So, and you know, has there ever an album sort of ended more decisively than that sort of colossal, huge, sustained chord at the end of a day in your life? You know, it's. You know, it sounds like the end
Yeah.
of music almost. It's like,
Yeah, I don't. Well, I'm not going to speak for. I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. I would have gone for a Jean-Michel Jarre album or whatever. But it's a great shout. Great shout.
oh yeah, you know, next to my dad's Jean-Michel Jarre tapes, we also had The Wall, and they had all of the Beatle albums up to Magical Mystery Tour, which they had as the double EP thing. So you know, those were childhood companions.
Nice music to be brought up on as well. And fast forward into today, are there any other artists out right now? Because I know you and I and Mark were talking earlier about there are great artists out there, but don't really get the airplay. Is there anyone out there right now that's made you sit up and go, "Oh, I like them," that you've heard recently?
The sort of Castles in Space Levitation Festival, there was a live set from Lula York, who's just got a new album out this week, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was one of the best things I've ever seen anyone do with a synthesizer ever. She was outstanding.
Yeah.
She was incredible. There's so many good people out there. I'm trying not to just drop Castles in Space names because.
And actually, you're right about her. Like, I think it's her album. Didn't it just get a double page spread review in Electronic Sound?
Yeah, she was like sort of album of the month or whatever they call it.
Yeah. I've just had
Electronic
on
Sound.
CD, actually.
Yeah, she is outstanding. So give her a listen. The album I've probably listened to the most in the past 12 months is Standards from Craven Faults, but you know, he's a bigger name. He's not sort of like cutting through underground. One of the other best live acts I actually saw this year was my friend from Lancaster here, Dave Shooter. He did a live. He performs as Gorilla Biscuits, and he did a live set with Kate. I can't remember her surname, but they did a live improvisation together, both entirely in Ableton. You often hear the word improvisation and people go, ooh, but this sounded like it had been rehearsed, and whereas they literally just met about an hour before they actually did it. So he's really good.
Like Gordon, is there an element of improvisation in that? I mean,
when I play live, it is kind of quite fixed to the in Ableton. I've spent a lot of time developing my live set. I've developed spaces where it is sort of like more improv within the set. A couple of years ago, where 2022, I was asked to play at End of the Road Festival, which was outstanding. It was incredible, really. That's where everything was going upwards, and that's when it's like started going upwards like that. So it's sort of, but they said we want 45 minutes. And I thought they're paying me, so this is a big showcase. They want me to play 45 minutes, so I better work out 45 minutes. What is it? And that's sort of like working that out. Sort of like has made it sort of the live set become more of a sort of a structured thing. So.
We got a funny story because when me and Andy was in bands, we played a gig once, and at the time we only had about 45 minutes worth of material, and the support band didn't turn up. So the promoter said, "Can you play for longer?" So we sort of spoke amongst ourselves, and we thought, "Oh shit, we haven't got anything, else." So we played our set, had a break, and came on and played the same set again. No one noticed.
Yeah, the trials and tribulations of live music. Mate, listen, obviously fantastic success last year, massive bands. Can't wait for the new stuff. Mark's the editing king on this, not me, and I'm sure he can put the dates up for your tour. Yeah, and anytime you get any release dates, let us know in advance. We'll happily promote and get you the ear time for our listeners that your music deserves. And say thanks for your time, your amazing music, and we just hope that those that haven't heard you will fall in love with what they hear on this episode. And like Mark and I, we're massive fans, mate. And
thank you very much.
But yeah, amazing to meet you, and say thank you so much for making this stuff, because it's absolutely brilliant.
All right, well, thank you very much, gents. Thank you for inviting me.
Take care. See you soon, mate.
Thank you very much.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that's it for another fantastic interview episode of the Electronic Cafe. I really hope you enjoyed Mark and I's conversation with the fabulous Gordon Chapman-Fox. Gordon, thank you so much. Really nice to meet you, buddy. Loving your stuff. Looking forward to all the new stuff you're bringing out this year. Sure you'll have another stellar success in 2024. And actually in 2024, what are you guys doing? March the 16th, Electronic Cafe Live, Volume 2. Mark, do you want to do the roll call and tell everyone who's going to be playing?
Yeah. The wonderful Wolfgang Fleur, ex-Kraftwerk, everybody knows. His musical partner, Peter de Gaulle, is doing a DJ set, which is amazing. Tiny Magnetic Pets, amazing synth-pop band. Everyone's probably knows about them and seen them before. And the one and only Mr. Mark Reeder of Factory Records fame, DJ, producer, musician. He opens for New Order. He's currently actually stellar lineup. If you want to get up close and personal to these guys, a top gig in London in March, this is the one to go to.
Beautifully said, my friend. So everyone, let's see you at the EC2 Live, Volume 2. Want you to be there to make it an amazing success for everyone that loves music. So we'll see you there. Stay safe, take care. Bye-bye for now.